All right, game three of the NBA Finals finished a little over an hour ago. I'm recording this from my apartment in San Antonio, Texas. There's still horns honking behind me as they're driving up and down the street, as San Antonians do. The Spurs win game three, 115, 111, to get back in the series, make it 2-1 Knicks, with obviously a massive game four coming up on Thursday night. It's just me tonight, flying solo. No Mitch. He's moved recently in Chicago and is without Wi-Fi briefly. So we really want to get something up. Obviously, haven't talked about any of these finals games yet. We just had a preview, so had to talk about these finals so far because it's been nuts. And obviously, as a San Antonioan, this is going to be a crazy one. So before we get going, let's bring in our friends from Green Top. So a wild one here. I'll briefly kind of talk about games one and two before I kind of get into the nitty gritty of game three. So obviously the Knicks win both on the road in San Antonio. The first one they really kind of showed their mettle. Jalen Brunson struggling shooting all game, down by 14 at one point, climb all the way back and win, end up winning by 10, another double-digit win in this crazy win streak that they had. That win in game one pushed it to 12. Obviously, their win in game two pushed it to 13. And that game two one is the one that, obviously, has a ton of talking points with the finish that we had, the Wemby turnover towards down the end there. Just kind of a wild game, back and forth game. One that I felt like the Knicks actually controlled game two quite a bit better than they did game one. But Spurs with a few plays late, almost steal it. We've got the Wemby turnover and then immediately foul, which sent Brunson to the line. Brunson then misses a free throw. Obviously, one of the most clutch players in the league, but misses a huge free throw there. Allows the Spurs a chance to go for the win. Pretty good look from Wemby, honestly. About an 18-footer, little pick and pop with Fox. Mitchell Robinson was in to defend it. Gets a decent look, back rims it. Game over. Knicks are up 2-0, and obviously, San Antonio was left stunned there. There's a lot of talk about all the plays down the stretch, and obviously the Wemby turnover is terrible. I would place the majority of the blame on him, especially once he takes a dribble. It makes sense for the guards to kind of get up the floor, but Castle, yeah, you hope maybe he looks a little longer, but even if Castle catches that, he's turning straight into Jalen Brunson. It just would have been a weird, play. I think once he took a dribble, it made sense for Mitch not to call a timeout because he would have been able to advance it, although you could have actually drawn something up, of course, but you make that decision pretty quickly in your head, as someone who's coached a bunch of games, obviously at much lower levels than the NBA, but I kind of err on the side of trusting, my players, especially if it's like a varsity player that I really trust that gets the rebound. Hey, go for it. Let's get something in transition so their defense isn't set. It's a scramble mode that's usually coming off a miss, which it was in that situation. So the team is a little rattled. So I didn't mind the no timeout. Wemby should have just kept the ball or outlet it the second he got the rebound. On the other side, find Harper or just hit it at a Castle right away. But once he took the dribble, he should have just kept going. So I think that's that's my opinion on the game. But I did not mind the no timeout call. That wasn't really the issue there for me. But what I didn't really love was the shot prior to that. When they were clearly trying to go 2 for 1, but Wemby takes that really difficult long two. It's just nothing going to the rim, nothing really attacking, nothing with any of the guards. Would have loved to see the ball maybe in Dylan Harper's hands in that situation. Just kind of an odd shot. I did like the idea of a 2 for 1. I do think that was smart in that kind of possession game, especially when it's tied like that. But obviously don't get a bucket there and then you actually play great defense, force a miss, get the rebound, and then turn it over, and then immediately foul. So, just a brutal loss, gut punch of a loss for the Spurs in game two. But, going into game three, it's, obviously all the hype of, Knicks' first, home game at Madison Square Garden in 27 years. The last game that was played, finals game that was played in the Garden was the Spurs winning game five and winning their first championship. Tim Duncan taking home finals MVP. Pretty crazy. That's this full circle moment. I mean, 27 years, to not be in the finals is just unacceptable, honestly, from the nation's biggest market and what should be a great basketball team for a long time, which looks like they're finally trending that direction. But tons of hype going into this game. Crowd was unbelievable. Starts with the anthem and they show Donald Trump up on the screen. He gets booed and it's just like this just has the feel of just a gigantic event, obviously, and it was. I mean, obviously the ticket, cost is a huge talking point of the last few days, and as someone who's trying to go to a couple World Cup matches here in the next month or so, ticket cost is something that's been on my brain, and I'm looking at these prices like this is just absolutely outrageous. Obviously, we've never seen anything like this, so hype is just sky high, obviously, and that first little kind of organ playing, right before the tip off and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I got chills watching the start of the game. It was just really cool. And obviously watching, my favorite team, hometown team playing in it, was just awesome. And I really like this Knicks team. So I was kind of talking to a couple friends about how, the Thunder series kind of brought out the like, oh, this is a rival kind of type thing fan in you. This Knicks team I respect so much and have like loved what they've done and do think it would be really cool for the city of New York to kind of experience a championship. But I've not let that override my want for my hometown team to win another championship. So, still obviously very much a rooting interest here, but I can obviously step back and assess it as a basketball game, and that's kind of what we'll do here. So obviously a great start for the Spurs. Come out, defense looks awesome. Wemby gets going early, got a couple buckets inside early. Pretty much making a concerted effort to be closer to the rim. I do think the kind of like, oh, why is Wemby, outside? Why isn't he at the rim all the time? I don't think people quite grasp how difficult it is to play by the rim all the time. First of all, just to get to the block. Like, if the way they're allowing, teams to hold and kind of grab and push, which is fine. It's just hard. It's not like it was in, at different eras where you could just kind of like jog down the floor, get to the block, turn, and like open up. That's just not really how basketball's played anymore. You see tons of bodies again. There's tons of holding, grabbing, and it's just a huge effort to get down low every single possession and fight for positioning every single possession when Wemby is doing so much on the defensive end. So it's just not realistic for him to just be by the rim all the time. However, obviously it's better for the Spurs offense when he is. There's just a constant lob threat. There's just constantly a body on him, so it's opened up driving lanes elsewhere and kickouts elsewhere. So clearly it does help. So he made a concerted effort early to kind of get down there. The Knicks looked a little bit nervous. I think both teams did early, and then it took the Knicks a little bit longer to settle into the game than I thought it would. But it's a huge moment for them too, right? It's a huge opportunity, and they have a chance to go up 3-0 in front of this raucous crowd. I thought it took them a second to kind of settle into the game, but they finally did, and I thought the Knicks in the second quarter were excellent, especially to close the second quarter. I think it was a 10-1 run to end the first half, and they take total control of the game, 64-57 at halftime, and it really is looking like, wow. I mean, this is they're just outplaying the Spurs. I mean, they just. I was commenting watching the game. Their spacing is just better. They just have a much clearer picture, clearer plan of what they want to do on each possession. They know exactly kind of where they want to attack, who's going to get shots. And I thought in the first half the ball zipped like much better than it did later in the game. I thought in the second half, kind of what they got away from some of the quick ball movement. That was so successful for them in the first half, and it was a lot of Brunson dribbling and kind of one-man show stuff. And I really think the Knicks are at their best, and they have been on this long winning streak that was finally snapped tonight. When the ball is just flying around and it's the shots are a little more even. Brunson's kind of going to be there for kind of late clock situations and late game situations, but I thought he over dribbled and tried to do a tad too much in the second half tonight, and that's actually where the Spurs started to get back in the game. The pace slowed for the Spurs after the first quarter. And they changed the rotation a little bit. I think that was a big thing that Mitch Johnson wanted to make a little bit of a tweak there. Was it was no Harrison Barnes tonight. There's still the kind of I think it was just under 4 minutes of Carter Bryant. A little bit more minutes to Keldon Johnson. A little bit less Cornette. I mean, so it was just more Wemby and more of your better guys. So trimmed it by one player, and then just gave a few more minutes to Dylan Harper and guys like that. So. That's going to happen as the series goes on, right? We'll probably hit a point where there's no Carter Bryant, and probably is just 7 guys playing. I mean, if it gets to a game 5, 6, 7, so that's just what happens in these final series. And so I think it was good for Mitch Johnson to kind of do that tonight. And then on the other side, I just thought, the Knicks, there was like a little bit of like playing like you're up 2-0. Mikal Bridges talked about after game 2. We can't think that we're up 2-0. We have to just think it's just 0-0, 0-0, 0-0. Every game we have to approach it like 0-0. And they had done such a good job of that in all of these wins that he had, this 13-game winning streak. I did think there was a little bit of kind of like, we're up 2-0, and like let's kind of see what happens. They lost a little bit of that zip that in the fourth quarter that I thought they had played with for most of the game and the majority of the series, honestly. So. Just an incredibly gutsy win. I mean, there's so many little plays. I made a few notes, obviously kind of rewatching some of the highlights just, before I jumped on here, of just some huge kind of plays from both sides. There was I think it ended up being kind of a deflected rebound that fell to Jalen Brunson. He gets an and one late, that little kind of banked floater. I think it was Champagny that fouled him. That felt like one of those plays like, man, if the Spurs kind of corral that rebound and go score on the other end, it's probably over there. But they don't. Brunson and one, another just super clutch play from him. And then there's the huge Wemby three where he gets fouled by Mitchell Robinson. Then they go to replay and they show that Kelvin Johnson did indeed kind of push Mitchell Robinson into Wemby. So Knicks challenge it, right call. That's a huge swing there. That would have been Wemby up 10, at the line with a free throw, and says it's just a 7-point game. And it's just, there's a lot of little moments like that where it felt like, wow, I mean, the Knicks could get right back in this. And I've always said to a lot of my buddies that, support the Spurs. I don't really trust the Spurs in these late game situations against the Knicks. I just think the Knicks are going to get higher quality shots in these kind of nip and tuck back and forth games in the fourth quarter. So it's like, I am not going to feel comfortable unless the Spurs are up by like 10. But even then, it's that can go in a blink, as we've seen in the series. So you're just probably never going to feel comfortable unless it's an actual blowout, which I don't think we're going to get a massive blowout in this series. I just think these teams are too evenly matched. But that was a huge play. And then there was the Wemby block on Shamet with about 4:07 left, where it looked like, and I think Richard Jefferson made a point on the broadcast. You got to kind of use the rim there. He actually started to go up too early, and Wemby could read it, and it was just an incredible block. Smacked it off the backboard. Spurs control it. That was a big play. And then with I think it was about 2:30 left, there was the Castle block on Brunson, where Castle's kind of like backpedaling. Pretty crazy block on him. Ball's about to fall out of bounds. It kind of bounces off Harper. Towns corrals it, but like in the kind of scramble, it gave Fox time to kind of recover. So Cat thinks there's nobody behind him. He goes up for a layup, and then Fox with a huge block behind him swats it out of bounds. Kind of a massive play there. It's an inbound for the Knicks still, though, so Brunson ends up getting a jumper, makes a jumper at the buzzer of that possession that kind of followed those two blocks. And again, that was with about 2:20 left. And then I don't think anybody scored in the next couple of possessions. And then late in the game, obviously, there was the ridiculous possession where the Spurs are just going nowhere. Oh no, that was the one that just followed. Yeah, so it was the Brunson jumper at the buzzer of the shot clock, and then there was the Wemby ISO with on Cat, which they have got to go away from. I just don't understand why they've done this so many times at the top of the key. Cat's done a fantastic job guarding Wemby on those plays. He shuts Wemby down. The possession is going absolutely nowhere. No one's cutting. No one's moving. And Wemby takes like one dribble to the right, kicks it to Castle. A buzzer of the shot clock. Castle tosses up, drains it. Spurs up 7. I mean, that was the biggest shot of the game in my opinion. That's going to be a Knicks rebound. Down 4 again. Brunson's going to kind of take them home. They'll probably get a Bridges 3, an OG Anunoby 3 at some point. And it just felt like, wow. I mean, that was the shot that kind of saved the day. I mean, again, on a possession that was going absolutely nowhere. Castle drills it, and those are kind of the types of plays that just totally swing finals games. And the Spurs did kind of have control, after that. It was cut to 6 at one point. There's a Brunson 3, cuts it to 3. Spurs have possession, and they go to De'Aaron Fox. Kind of when the axis in the set screen, kind of pulls it back. So it's basically a Fox kind of ISO on OG Anunoby, and he just hits a tough jumper. I mean, just kind of a cold-blooded jumper. 12.2 left, kind of just above the free throw line. Just a massive shot for a guy who kind of had his struggles, obviously, throughout the playoffs, and is maligned by honestly a lot of Spurs fans more than he should be. So I'm really happy he got that block right. That ended up, the Knicks still scored in that possession, but it kind of a huge play that kept Cat from getting a wide open layup, and then this huge jumper to essentially seal the game. Now on the other end, OG Anunoby did go down and hit an incredibly difficult corner 3, so that cuts it to 2. Spurs advance the ball. They actually throw it into Fox. I think Fox caught the inbound. I think he was wanting to go into the backcourt and kind of be able to dribble around, waste a little more time. But it was thrown a tad early, so he looked like I'm in kind of a weird spot. He throws this pretty risky pass back over the top to Castle, who had thrown the inbound pass. Castle gets fouled, hits both free throws. That seals the game. 115-101 Spurs win. But yeah, again, I'm really happy Fox kind of got that moment to kind of quiet some of the naysayers, we'll call them. I think haters is just an overused word, so I'll try to stay away from it there. But the naysayers, and a lot of people, trade him. I don't think people understand, part of the reason, the Spurs are so good is that 3-guard attack, is that kind of any one of them can have a huge night. And I thought pretty much everybody that played for the Spurs tonight was better in this game than they had been in the previous 2. And I thought Wemby was quite a bit better tonight than he had been in the previous 2. So it's like this stuff is going to come and go, and of course, like he makes a lot of money and all that. But I don't think people quite understand, his presence and his calming influence, what it's had on the other 2 guys. And you trade him, and that just removes a massive strength of the team, is having that 3 guard. You always have 2 of them on the floor. That's just a huge advantage. So unless you're trading him for like Giannis, it's like I don't really see how that's like, much of an upgrade. To just get like another type of guard or another wing or future picks. It's like the Spurs' future is totally set. I just think, just hang on to him until you have to pay these other guys. So I expect De'Aaron Fox to be on the team for a couple more years, but and I want him to be on the team for a couple more years. Like it doesn't hurt to have other really good players. I just think people are just so fickle with this stuff. But back to the actual game tonight. So some kind of, just quick stat lines, just kind of throw out, just gotta give guys a shout out. I mentioned OG Anunoby and that very difficult 3 hit in the corner. To cut the game to 2 down the stretch. I thought OG was unbelievable tonight. Just a phenomenal performance. He's been so good in these playoffs, and I love watching him play. He's so direct at times, like just attacking the rim. It's just like head down, go. Like I'm just not gonna stop you. And then his transition defense is like some of the best I've ever seen. Like he just walls up. He reads plays perfectly. Like he's always in good position. Like just such a solid player. I genuinely love watching him play basketball. 28 points, 5 boards, 2 blocks, 9 of 13 from the field, 3 of 7 from 3, and a couple of those were like just very difficult corner threes that he got to the line 9 times. I thought he was excellent tonight. I thought he was the Knicks' best player tonight. Brunson scored a bunch, but is again 11 of 25, and it was a lot of like high dribble possessions where it felt like there was just not much going on, and it was a lot of kind of watching him try to split a double team and try to get around a double team. He had to really work for his 30 points. Again, 11 of 25. He has not shot that well in this series, so that's gonna like kind of look nice. 32, 5 and 5. But I actually thought his floor game was not that great. I thought there was a lot of plays where he could have got off of it earlier. And just got them in the blender, got the Spurs in the blender. And Wemby was kind of in weird positions on some of those traps that I just think Brunson, it was just a little bit of a, like, I want to kind of bring us home game, and it kind of backfired. And then Karl Anthony Towns, who had been, like we talked about, just terrific in the first 2 games, came back to earth a bit in this one. So 4 of 10 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3. Only getting up 2 threes is obviously a big deal. 11 points, 8 boards, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Still felt his presence. I thought he was still pretty good guarding Wemby, but obviously nowhere near the impact that he had in the first couple of games. And part of that is because it was so much of Brunson, right? So much of kind of the ISOs, the dribbling, and it just kind of left some of the other guys out of the flow. And the biggest guy that was out of the flow, and I think the guy who is often hurt by the games where either Cat or Brunson get like a ton of shots, is Mikal Bridges. So Mikal Bridges tonight, 1 of 5 from the floor, only 2 points, 5 rebounds, and a couple of assists. But just was, absent on offense. And it wasn't all his fault. But yeah, you just did not feel him after, a terrific game 2 from him. You just did not feel his presence at all on offense for the Knicks. And that's, again, not all his fault, but it does happen. The Knicks did not shorten the rotation. They actually gave Jeremy Sohan 10 seconds. Clarkson played 13 minutes, had his best game of the series by far, 10 points. I don't think he had scored until tonight. San Antonio native, Jordan Clarkson, same graduating class as me. Obviously not the same school, but same graduating class as me, class of 09. He had 10 points off the bench, and again, best game of the series. Jose Alvarado, 12 minutes. Mitchell Robinson only played 7 minutes tonight. There's a couple times where he was in the game when the Knicks were in the bonus already, so I think Woodson just thought, Woodson. Mike Woodson, that's an old Knicks coach. Mike Brown just thought, this is probably not worth it. Like, we can't really afford kind of an 0 for 4 free throw stretch here, so he would just get him out of the game. And only 7 minutes from him. That's tough to see. Miles McBride, just under 9 minutes played, and then Shamet was kind of the big beneficiary off the bench, and he played nearly half the game. But he, again, 1 for 8. This is not the Shamet we saw in the first couple games and some of the absolute flamethrower performances he's had in other parts of the playoffs. That was not here tonight. So the Knicks, I think there's a lot of things they can kind of improve on. Obviously, I think again, Brunson getting off the ball a little bit earlier. Let's get Bridges involved early in the game, make him feel like he's a part of it, and then you'll kind of go from there. And then probably a few more touches for Cat, at the elbows, maybe a couple post-ups you can kind of get him. I thought the Knicks' offensive rebounding was still really good. They were killing the Spurs a few times, a few stretches of the game. They really, really hurt the Spurs on that. So thought that was impressive from them. But there's a lot of stuff they can kind of improve on. And I thought San Antonio kind of really gave them a good shot tonight. And that was the best all-around game the Spurs have played in this series so far. And just kind of highlight a couple of their players. Castle, this was easily his best game of the series. 8 of 14 from the field. He had that massive 3 late. It was 2 of 5 from 3 overall. 23 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists for him. Wemby, 32 points, 8 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, 11 of 18 for 61%. Made a couple threes, 8 of 9 from the line. A fantastic defensive performance again. I thought Wemby was amazing tonight. He just was the best player on the floor pretty easily. So, and then Fox again, yeah, 12 points for Fox, 13 for Harper. Harper had some really good takes to the rim. His finishing ability is incredible. 9 boards for Dylan Harper off the bench. That's awesome. And then Devin Vassell, just only 4 shots, but just like a metronome, just like so solid, makes the right play, gets into it with guys. He's physical, rebounds pretty well for his size. Like he just really solid. Champagny 4 for 9, 3 threes from Champagny, one of them an and one, which ended up being a Brunson flagrant foul. Which I thought was a little bit soft. I didn't think that was a flagrant foul. It was a foul, but yeah, it shouldn't have been a flagrant foul. I thought that was a little bit odd. And then the last thing I guess we probably should touch on is a little bit of the officiating. The fourth quarter, by my count, took 51 minutes to play. Just ridiculous. Like, I just don't understand why these games have to take this long. And there's 3 reviews. Obviously, they're challenges, and it's just, these teams have these challenges, so that, they got to use them. And all 3 were used well. All 3 of them were successful. That should kind of say something about the officiating, that they missed those 3 calls initially. But man, they just break up the flow. It's like these are such fun games, and then they just grind to a halt. And my stance on these kind of reviews in general in sports is like, when it's really quick stuff, like in soccer, kind of goal line technology, where it's like instant and or like in a basketball game, maybe something like you can look at the replay to tell if like a guy got off like a last second shot or something like that. I think those are like good uses of it. But this kind of like re-refereeing and relitigating like all these little plays in a game, I just think at this point, perfect is the enemy of good, and they're just, it's hurting the product to have these awesome games just come to a complete stop so many times for like things that are just kind of like, man, like, I don't know. We watch all these old games, Mitch and I, for these projects we do in the summer, for like Anatomy of a Franchise, which is coming up soon, by the way. And I don't know, like, I just think, like, these end of games, they move so much better, and like it's okay. Like, they missed a lot of calls. Like, there are moments that would be very different if we had review, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, this like need to get it right, I think is pretty misguided, because like if we're actually doing that, if that's actually the goal here, they should be looking at quite a bit more. If we're so obsessed with getting it right, there's actually a lot of things you could look at even more than we do now. So like that can't be it. It's like we're just kind of like getting in our own way with some of this stuff, and it's like I understand that like there's going to be stuff that'll swing and results that'll swing because of this, and or players fouling out that shouldn't or whatever. But that's how it goes. Like that's happening anyway, because you can't review everything. So it's like to kind of like to like have the actual product and like the flow of the game suffer for just the sake of getting it right, I just think is a little bit misguided. But I know people can differ, and I think people who maybe work in the league, they want the opportunity to try to get more stuff right, and I understand that. Like, obviously as a coach myself, like it'd be nice sometimes to be like, man, I'd like love to challenge that because that was like a huge call that went against us. But ultimately, I actually really love that these games that I'm coaching in, these club games especially, like have an awesome flow to them, and the ending of games is like pretty exciting because it's not stopping constantly. That's just me though, and I felt that in this game. It just was like I have a team in the in the finals, so it's like I'm really into it either way. But I can imagine that these reviews for like kind of a casual fan who's like checking this stuff out, like they're just off ramps for people. They're just like like I'll just get on my phone, or I'll change the channel, or I'll like go back to the Netflix show I was watching. And I imagine that is happening to some people. But again, that's my little rant over. But and then, okay, last piece of the officiating, the off ball holding. I think that's what Mitch and I have talked about, the officiating and some of the stuff. I'm like, I think it has veered a tad too far in the too physical category, and I think that's where I've pinpointed where it's bothering me the most. It's the off-ball grappling that I think is the most annoying, because I love like flowing movement offenses. I don't really want just like super high dribble possessions where like no one can really move because everyone's being held, like, and we're just kind of watching one guy dribble. I don't think that's really good basketball. So, and I try to coach against that when I'm coaching, and I want my teams to play this like flowing, cutting, offense. So I don't mind that some of the screens are more physical. You got to finish through more contact. I think that's good. I think all that stuff is good. And like a little more, kind of bumping in the post, I think is good. But it's like, man, there are guys like they can't even like get to the elbow. Like they can't even cut like through after making a pass, or like get to the corner. I don't think that's really good for the game, where it's like, okay, well, I guess I just won't do it then. And so I'll just go stand because I actually can't cut because I'm just being held so much. Like that's frustrating. That was happening for both teams. I mean, Castle is just holding and grappling constantly. Harper's got super strong hands. He's bumping guys constantly. But I mean, there's plays where I mean, Cat is just. I mean, they called him on it tonight on one of them. I mean, just it's full on hugging. I mean, just a full on hug on Wemby, and it's like, all right, I guess this is just what it's going to be. I don't know. I just don't. That's not really the sport I fell in love with. So that is some of the stuff I wish they would kind of clean up a little bit. But I actually liked that some of the ball handling stuff is a little more like physical, and then the finishing around the rim. I like that. I think that's good. I think that's good that that there's a higher bar for calling fouls on some of the stuff around the rim. But yeah, I mean, overall, honestly, this has been an awesome finals. The league's got to be happy with, obviously it being 2-1 and two marquee teams, and the stars have come to play in a lot of these games, and there's been like great moments and controversial moments and stuff. There's just stuff to talk about for all these games, and I think that's really good. And obviously, I had fun talking about it tonight. Mitch will be back for this next one. We are either going to record after Game 5. Obviously, if the Knicks win in 5, we'll do something right after that. Or we may wait till Game 6. We'll see. I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling, attempting to go to a couple World Cup matches, as I've mentioned already. But and then Austin and I are going to a WNBA game next week in Dallas, so we're looking forward to that. But there will be more from us from these finals. I hope these games stay competitive and stay good. It's so fun to have close games. The Thunder and Spurs series was tense and dramatic, but there are actually quite a few blowouts in that. So this already has lived up to the hype, and I just hope we keep getting close games, and hopefully it's a long series. Obviously for my sake as a San Antonio native, but also for just casual basketball fans that want to see more of this. So that's me signing off. But check back next time for more Hoopers Almanac.